What's up everyone? My name's Jason and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to make a super simple low carb frittata. Okay, so for today's recipe we're going to need to start with a non-stick pan. This is a 12-inch saute pan, and you need something that is oven safe because we're going to put it under the broiler at some point. So you don't want to have any kind of handle that's going to melt in the oven. We're going to start off with some lean ground beef. I like to use lean ground beef so that I know where the fats are coming from. I don't like to get too much fat from the ground beef itself. This package is probably just under a pound of ground beef. We're going to have 5 eggs. I'll beat those up. Some sliced pepperonis. These are pretty thin. I like to use this Hormel pepperoni slices. They're 0 carb, and you know, pepperonis don't always have the greatest ingredients, but these are pretty good. And then lastly, we're going to have some shredded cheese. This is around a pound of, or sorry, not a pound. This is around a cup of shredded cheese. You can use any kind of cheese you want. This is just a double cheddar blend. And then of course we're going to have some salt and pepper in there because everyone knows you need to season your as you go to make things taste the way you want. Now you could add any number of things to this recipe. You could add some mushrooms, some lower carb kinds of peppers and onions, but this is just a simple base for you to start with, and then you can add to it as you feel, as your taste permits. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do obviously is brown up our ground beef. If you've been watching my videos recently, this is my ultimate kitchen utensil. It's great for, well, basically chopping up ground beef or ground meat of any kind. So we want to break it up as fine as we can. And of course, always remember, we want to season as we go, so we're going to add some salt. I like to use, personally I use Redmond's real salt. This is the coarse Redmond's real salt that I put in my grinder. I also have a shaker with fine salt in it. Himalayan pink salt is also a good option for this. Just want to make sure you get some real quality salt, not that white table salt. And then we're also going to add some fresh cracked pepper to it. And then we'll mix that in. And what I'll do when this, I'll look up all of the macros for this entire recipe, and I'll put them down in the description of the video, along with a link to the masher, so that you can see what the carb and protein and fat content is of this meal. I typically will use this as an option if I'm eating by myself without the family, and quite often I'll eat the entire thing as one meal, especially if it's the only meal I'm going to have for the day, because it does make quite a bit. You can definitely portion it up and use it as a meal prep kind of recipe. And I'm sure, like, I've never frozen it, but I'm sure it would work well if it was frozen in portions as well. Now I should mention, you can, if you don't like ground beef, you can make this recipe with ground turkey or ground chicken or ground pork, sort of whatever you want, or you can make a mix of 2 of them. Usually when I make up ground beef as part of a meal prep, I'll mix ground beef with ground pork, and then I'll portion it out to use for recipes like this. But really, it's up to you what kind of meat you use in the recipe. Okay, so at this point, where it's almost browned, of course I like to add some more seasoning. Get some more salt in there, some more pepper. And you're going to want to let this cook out any of the moisture that's come out of the ground beef. You know, it's lean ground beef, so there's not going to be a lot of fat that comes out of it, but we all know that there's going to be some moisture that comes out of it. You want to let that cook out so that it's not making the frittata all soggy. And from the looks of this, I may have to actually take some of this out and use it for another recipe, because it's probably a little too much for what I want for this recipe. But we'll finish cooking it up and then we'll portion some of it out so that we can use it another day. Okay, so you can see I've probably got maybe around half of the ground beef left here. So at this point we're ready to add our eggs. And what I've done is I've taken the 5 eggs and I've beaten them just like you would for an omelet. And all we're going to do is add the eggs into the ground beef. And really all you need to do is just spread it around, make sure everything's mixed in. And at this point we're going to turn the oven on to, I'm going to turn my oven on to a broil setting, because really once we put it in the oven it's not going to take very long. We're ultimately just going to cook the top of it. I'm going to let this cook for 2 or 3 minutes to set the bottom of it, and then we'll put it in the oven and finish cooking it in there. Okay, so it looks like the bottom of this is set now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it into the oven under the broiler, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it because this will cook up pretty quickly. Okay, so that was under the broiler for 2 or 3 minutes, and as you can see the eggs have cooked through on the top. They're just starting to get brown. So at this point we're going to add our cheese and pepperoni. So we're just going to sprinkle the shredded cheese on top. Again, if you can add more or less cheese if you want. I personally like it to be really cheesy. It'll spread right out on it once it goes back under the broiler. So we're going to add that cheese, and then lastly we're just going to put some pepperonis on top just like we would on a pizza. Quite often I refer to this as a meat and egg pizza, because that's the way it turns out when it's fully cooked. So there we go, so that'll be enough pepperonis. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put it back into the broiler and keep an eye on it, because this is only going to take a minute or two to melt that cheese and it'll be done. Okay, so that took about, I don't know, a minute and a half. As you can see, the cheese is completely melted and the pepperonis are nicely cooked. We're just going to give that a couple of seconds to set up again, and then what we'll do is we'll turn it out onto this plate I have here. It comes out all in one piece like a pizza. Like I said, sometimes I'll just eat this as a meal, but you could cut it up just like a pizza and portion it out as a meal prep, or if there's multiple people in the family that want to have it. So as you can see, that's nice and loose in the pan. I love these pans, the Rock cooking pans. I find they never stick with recipes like this. So we're going to try and get this all out in one piece here for you. Just slide it out onto the plate, just like that. And that's about it. Like you can see, it's fairly thick. I call it a frittata. I'm not sure what it's really called, but this is basically how I make it. Again, you can add all sorts of things if you want to add mushrooms or onions or bacon or sausage or whatever you want to put in it. This is just a base recipe that will get you started on it. And I'll put all the ingredients that I use down in the description. And again, I'll put the macros down there as well so that you can know how much, what the nutrients in this is. So that's about it. If you like seeing videos like this, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video specifically, hit that like button. Let me know down in the comments if you make things like this. And if you want to see some more of my my food recipes, you can follow me on Instagram at _keto_technician. I'll put a link down in the description for that. And that's about it. So we'll see you at the next recipe video. Have a good day.